I've never seen your end of it, so I don't know what it looks like. I've only been like, do you have a thing on the right-hand side that shows comments in the chat?
I do, yeah. I have that private chat
Okay.
comments.
Yeah, and then you have like end broadcast up in the top right-hand corner, or maybe that's leave broadcast.
I have powered by StreamYard right above McDaniel College.
Okay, and then in the top right-hand corner shows like edit and stuff and comments, banners. Good morning, Joe.
No, I don't see any of that.
Oh, Jill says good morning.
So, I see that when you post that.
Yeah, so it's really cool. I like it a lot. Although we're looking at another one that I think we're going to end up using for our live stream stuff.
Yeah.
So, all right, man. It's Christmas time.
Woohoo!
I thought about trying to find a Santa hat, but then I forgot. It was like a brief moment where I'm like, hey, I should find a Santa hat. And then I forgot to ask someone. Good morning, Karen.
I always want to put a Santa hat on
the spur.
You.
Yeah. Although you can see him. Oh, he's right there.
Oh yeah, I see him. But to be honest, John, I can't look at Charles Spurgeon and think Charles Spurgeon. This reminds me. It looks like I have a bobblehead of you on my desk, reminding me to preach expositorily.
One guy, Chris Wilson, he said a Mando helmet. I need a Mando helmet for the show. That could be cool.
Here we go. Here we go. This from last night.
Yeah, all the Seahawks fans up here probably don't dislike your team as much as I do.
Well, the funny thing is that you know how he was out of the second half, pretty much all of it.
Mm-hmm.
The memes this morning are saying that he wasn't cramping, but he was actually in the bathroom. And then he comes back on to have a miracle win. Like, it was crazy.
Yeah.
I think
that was an exciting game.
Yeah,
that was a fun game to not care about who won.
Yeah, well, it was not a fun game to care about who won. But hey, when you got Justin Tucker as kicker, you don't have to worry about those those games.
Right. Okay. So let's actually talk about Christmas stuff. But maybe we should give a not a spoiler warning, but a warning to parents. If you have kids in the room, and depending on your perspective of the jolly red man, you might want to mute it or not watch it with them, because we might say something that we might ruin something, and then you could get mad at us, which we don't want. We don't want anyone to get mad at us. So fair warning, we will talk about Santa Claus, and we might make comments that little ones might be shocked by or whatnot. So I don't think that's really anyone, but I figured we should give that little warning ahead of time just in case. So let's talk about Christmas, man. We got Christmas in less than 10 days, right?
Yeah.
In exactly 10 days, right?
10 days.
Yeah. So there's a lot around Christmas that lots of questions for Christians to consider and think about, and a wide variety of perspectives and thoughts. And did you have anywhere that you were like, hey, let's specifically talk about? Yes, Janelle is very excited about Christmas. If you couldn't tell from her picture too. So they do Christmas big at their house. Most years they actually get like a 14-foot Christmas tree, but they couldn't find one this year. So
yeah, you got to go illegally chop those down in the forest.
No, they sell them here. We can find them here.
Oh, do they?
Yeah, we're the, what are we? The Evergreen State. I think that's one of our nicknames. I don't know. Anyhow, so let's talk about Christmas. I mean, you threw out this idea of talking about it. So let's let's kind of run wherever you want, and I think it'll be beneficial for our people and anyone from North Hills that's watching that wants to, or any of our family members who think we're spiffy because we're on the internet and makes us famous.
Yeah. I'm always hesitant to show these. I'm always hesitant to show these ahead of time with people. I want to make sure I don't say something stupid. But anyway,
that's why I posted it on your wall, so you couldn't hide from it.
Yeah, I couldn't hide from it. There may be some, but I Christmas it's one of my favorite times of the year. But the question always gets brought up when people are talking about Christmas, particularly in Christian circles, and even more so in Reformed circles, which you and I run around sometimes, dabble our minds in as well, is should
throw hand grenades and then run and hide.
Yeah, and run and hide. But should Christians even celebrate Christmas?
Yeah.
And then if they should celebrate Christmas, to what extent do we celebrate Christmas?
Yeah.
Asking questions like, well, what about Santa Claus? What about evergreen trees? Isn't Christmas just a pagan holiday? Should we just stay clear of it? The Bible doesn't ever command us to celebrate Christmas, therefore we shouldn't. I've always erred on the side of grace and just say, you know what, we can redeem anything. But there's a couple things that in our household that we have somewhat decided not to do. For us, the big thing was Santa Claus. We decided that we were not going to do Santa Claus with Mia, the oldest, and then that just followed suit with Emily. But that wasn't really my decision, though I think it was the right decision. It was kind of like Mia got to that age where she asked the question, "Hey, is Santa Claus real?" And Amanda just blurts out, "Yeah, but he's dead."
No chill. Amanda's got no chill.
Because we recognize that Santa Claus is based off of Saint Nicholas.
Yeah.
The great church father who combated heresy at the Council of Nicaea in 325 AD, and
punching heretics in the face. That's the true meaning of celebrating Christmas.
What just happened?
Did I lose you? You froze. Did I lose you, James? This is fun. Your face.
You're
your
still
camera
there?
Shifted. Yeah. You're kind of blurry, but James.
Hello?
Yo.
Hello?
Can you hear me? James. Hey. Yeah. James, why don't you leave and try and come back? Okay. So the wonders of the internet, right? Was it for those of you that are watching, was it James or was it me or was it both of us? Hopefully it was James, so I can blame it all on him, on his poor internet in the People's Republic of California. And when they say People's Republic, that it's never good. Like the Democratic Republic of Congo. Okay, great. So Janelle says it was all James's fault. He's back, and I'm going to let him in. So it's all your fault, James. Okay, so you guys decided that you weren't going to do anything. You weren't going to do the American version of Santa Claus, right? Is that? But you would tell the kids that Santa was a real person. He's based on a real person. Based on the Bishop Saint Nicholas, who was in the 300s and was at the Council of Nicaea, and he's awesome because it is church history states that when Arius made a blasphemous statement about Jesus, saying that Jesus was of similar substance to the Father, not the same substance as the Father, he slapped him or punched him in some way, maybe not to physically harm him, but as a means of showing insult and air in Arius's way, right? Was it Arius or was it bishop? So was he allowed to speak? I can't remember.
It was.
All I remember
is Arius. Yeah, it was the Arian.
All I remember is Santa punched people.
Yeah. Well, what's interesting is a lot of people don't know that he actually got thrown into jail for that. So they had like a ecclesiastical jail that, and I don't think he was allowed to actually participate in the rest of the Council of Nicaea. So
Saint Nick was it?
Yeah. So
That's awesome.
Yeah. But so we've watched the Veggie Tales on Saint Nick, and how he was Greek, and and there's other legends that have nothing to do, and really the Santa Claus is very much Europeanized anyway. So it's not this this idea of a guy, like even one of the things that drives me absolutely insane, and I might get in trouble for saying this, is the statues or the pictures of Santa kneeling at the manger and praying. Like, it's a little overboard anyway. And I think you and I kind of know I'm not a huge fan of of manger scenes anyway, even though I have some in my house, because of kind of
Come on, you have the little people one.
We do.
It's a pastor's kids, a Christian kids rite of passage to have the little people one.
Yeah, and for me, I don't really have a whole lot of I have my own convictions. I don't push on other people, and even for I don't like, I see some of these like baby Jesuses and Jesus pictures as kind of second commandment violations, which we don't really have to get into, but I try not to push that on other people, and I try not to be dogmatic, and we have tried not to be dogmatic about the Santa Claus thing. It's our thing. I don't preach that, from the pulpit. I don't say you're ruining your kids because you tell them about fake Santa Claus. Like, I don't do that. Our kids, on the other hand, have not gotten the clue that, hey, this is kind of our thing. Stop telling your classmates that Santa is dead. That's not okay. And Mia she just loves, like, let me tell you about Santa Claus. He's not real.
Mia's got no chill.
She has no chill. And, and our kids, our kids are typical pastor kids anyway. I mean, we went, camping for Thanksgiving, and we always get really lucky with, the kids next, to our campsite, or the people that are camping next to us usually have kids. And at this point, we're trying to social distance, and Emily, we overhear Emily yelling at this kid. And why? Because he doesn't know anything about Jesus, and she is going to tell him everything about Jesus. The parents were not happy about that. It was fine, but they left that day. I hope it wasn't because of us, but it's just one of those things. Like, our kids have a hard time, like, when we tell them, hey, we don't do Santa Claus. Now, for whatever reason, we do Elf on the Shelf, but I don't know. We are very inconsistent in things.
That's human nature, right? To be inconsistent. It's funny. We kind of took we weren't gonna talk about Santa. We weren't gonna push it, but we weren't gonna like hide it from Charlie. Like, we didn't avoid Santa-y shows, movies or stuff with Santa in it. And so we talked to him about who is Saint Nick, and the real reason we would remember Saint Nick. Actually, Amber and Charlie just watched it's on Right Now Media. It's by the guy who did VeggieTales, Phil Veshier, or whatever, how you say his last name. Buck Dever, is that his name? The character, the puppet.
Oh yeah.
They have one on Christmas, and it's really good. It kind of talks to you about why we celebrate Christmas on the 25th of December, why it's called Christmas, who's the real Saint Nick, how even Santa Claus, the name Santa Claus, came about. So it's really fascinating to watch and read all that stuff. And I think one of the questions the idea you talked about is should we celebrate Christmas? Mm-hmm. There are definitely camps within evangelical Christianity that would say And I think they're probably more narrow than it narrow within that, but would say, no, you shouldn't celebrate Christmas because it's either we're not commanded to, or it's rooted in pagan tradition. And I think one of the things I think is important for us is, as we consider things that are rooted in those types of things, is can we redeem them? And maybe even just, I know you're really passionate about why we celebrate Christmas on Christmas. And so I don't know if you want to jump into that.
Gosh. You know, I mean, for me, I just get really, I somewhat get concerned, and sometimes this concern boils over into irritation with a lot of ignorance around, December 25th. And a lot of people are like, oh, it's not December 25th. And, it's probably more in April or September and all of these things. And we have to accept the fact that, whatever we think about December 25th or not, I mean, the idea that we celebrate Christ's Mass or, Christmas or the Nativity is very, very old. And it goes all the way back to shortly after the Council of Nicaea, when we definitively know that, I think it was like 362 AD is when the earliest documented case of Christmas happening on December 25th. I mean, that's, 1,700 years ago, almost 1,700 years of celebrating on December 25th. And that wasn't questioned until the 20th century. And it wasn't questioned by Christians. It was questioned by those who were in secular society, who were trying to find the historical Jesus anyway. And they came up with all of these reasons why it couldn't have happened. And the primary evidence that they put forth against Christmas being on December 25th is that the Roman Catholic Church had a habit of invading, kind of through the Holy Roman Empire, invading people through Constantine and all this, and taking their pagan traditions, and rather than trying to get them to stop being pagan, they just tried to redeem their pagan traditions. So they would say that Christmas was just the Roman Catholic Church's attempt to take Sol Invictus, or the Winter Solstice Festival, and Christianize it in order to make it palatable for Christians, so they can continue to shift just a little bit. The problem
syncretism.
The problem is there's absolutely no evidence that took place at all. In fact, there's more evidence that the opposite took place, because even around the time of 362, when they were talking about, Christmas taking place, at the same time, you also have, the Winter Solstice Festival, Sol Invictus, and the Nativity on the same Roman calendar. So if they're on the same Roman calendar, why would they actually, why would you accuse Rome of trying to replace it?
Yeah.
You would think they would just put the Nativity on there and get rid of the other one, but it's on the same official calendar. And even, I think it was Origen, which is one of the church fathers around that time, said that they had celebrated Christmas on December 25th from the very beginning. So the idea that it's rooted in pagan roots, and the other thing we have to understand is that the Roman Catholic Church, as we understand it today, isn't from the very beginning. Even Calvin and the Reformers, they pointed back to the last pope that they believed was a God-fearing man, and that was Gregory the First. And he never called himself the Pope. He called himself the Bishop of Rome. And that was around, 380. So the Roman Catholic Church, as we see it today, didn't actually come into existence until 400, 500 AD.
Yeah. It was a slow process of consolidating ecclesiastical power.
Exactly. So the idea that Rome just kind of, adopted, this holiday and tried to make it their own and said, okay, that's just where Christ was born. There's really not a whole lot of evidence that took place.
Yeah.
The other things that people will say is, well, sheep shepherds don't shepherd sheep in around Bethlehem in December because it's too cold. Well, that's not true, because if you were to look at the weather right now in Jerusalem or Bethlehem, you would see that it's not actually that cold. I mean,
should I look it up right now? I'm going to look it up right now.
It'd be interesting.
Okay, keep talking.
So, the idea that the weather would keep people from that. Actually,
it's a high of 57 and a low of 48 today.
Yeah, so, that's cold for people who live in California, but that's not cold.
That's that's our weather here today.
So you think about that. That's not, so they shepherd sheep in Israel year round.
Yeah.
But one of the things that a lot of people don't realize is that the earliest traditions of the dating of Christmas are not rooted in the birth of Jesus, but the proclamation of the birth of John the Baptist. And, thinking through, Zechariah, John the Baptist's father, was a priest. And when did the angel appear to him? While he was serving in the temple. So if he's serving in the temple, the thought is that he was serving in the temple as the priest on the Day of Atonement, which we know I don't know, when I was growing up, we always got, the Day of Atonement, Yom Kippur, off. And it was always in the fall. So it's around September, October, So you think.
My school district didn't care about Jewish people, so we didn't get it off.
You're from California, but I grew up right around Baltimore, which is one of the largest concentrations of Jewish people living outside of Israel. So
everyone's going to take it off anyway, so you might as well just give everyone
exactly. So, if he's serving on the Day of Atonement, he finishes up his 2-week service, he goes home, and assuming that Elizabeth gets pregnant right away, that's 9 months from right around maybe October, November. We know that when Mary is first pregnant, she visits Elizabeth for 3 months, and Elizabeth is 6 months pregnant. So you do the math there, and you realize that if John the Baptist was conceived shortly after the Day of Atonement, you add those days up, and Jesus's birth would be around end of December, early January. In fact, actually, the Eastern Orthodox Church celebrates Christmas on January 6th because of that reason. So
Epiphany.
Yeah. There's this idea that, and you think that's very early. So you add all this up, and while the Bible doesn't, the Bible's it's our only infallible word of God, and it doesn't tell us when it happens. You have to admit that at least it's possible that December 25th. So it kind of begs the question, why would anybody want to challenge that? Oh, go ahead.
No, in or around, like, even if it's not that exact day, it's entirely plausible that Jesus was born in that window. Yeah. And we've just in whatever 362 or whatever, they said, hey, we're going to celebrate this day, this momentous occasion, on this day. It's the same thing, like we celebrate the independence on July 4th, but I think the Declaration of Independence was actually signed on July 2nd and then ratified by everyone else on August 4th or something like that. Like, so even though it's not the specific day,
why do you hate America?
I don't hate America.
Why would you ruin that for people? What? That's worse than saying Santa Claus is. No, I'm just kidding. I'm born on.
I'm gonna go shooting guns tomorrow to reaffirm my Americanness. We go exercise my constitutional right. And so I think there's a what good is there in kind of fighting the, like, hey, this is when we've done it, so what's the point of bucking the tradition, so to speak? And what's really the purpose when when we are thinking about Christmas and we're considering it,
Mhm.
let's what's the purpose of us celebrating it? And
Right.
if we're not going to celebrate it, then when are we gonna spend time intentionally focusing on? I mean, I go back and forth about whether Easter, oh sorry, Resurrection Day, another one, Easter or Christmas, which one should hold greater significance, like in our mental capacity, because
Right.
like Christmas is the incarnation of the Son of God. So God taking on human flesh, like
Right.
with the purpose of dying on the cross and resurrecting from the dead. Like they are both like, it's like 1A and 1B, they're
Mhm.
so significant that we should spend time reflecting on and considering the full implications of them. And, we can do it all the time. Yeah, exactly. Allison says, you can't have Resurrection Day without Christmas, like
Mhm.
it's the war is, incarnation is the beginning of the war or beginning of the battle, and resurrection is the culmination of it. So I think there are times where if we don't set aside intentional time to reflect upon something or celebrate it or think about it, we often don't do it.
Right.
That's, I think, we can joke about Mother's Day and Father's Day, like, oh, well, we celebrate moms all year long. And it's like, yeah, but do we really in the same degree of what we do intentionally on those days, setting aside. So I think it's quite helpful, but at the same time, we now live in a culture, and maybe I was going to say, we now live in a culture where Christmas is being co-opted for other purposes.
Right.
So maybe we could talk about that a little bit. But I think one thing that should be important for us to note, like we talked about, like there's some people that say, well, we're not commanded to do it in Scripture. I think we can look and see at Jesus' own example in John chapter 10, that Jesus goes and celebrates Hanukkah, which or he at least is in the vicinity of he's in Jerusalem when Hanukkah is taking place at the Feast of Dedication.
Yeah.
And he's not rebuking anyone for participating. So at minimum, Jesus is willing to let people celebrate and participate in an event that is not scripturally commanded.
Yeah.
And so those types of things, they can be helpful, whether they're now we want to be careful that we're not adding to the Word of God, but
right.
There are things that can help us in our walk as we reflect upon who God is and what God has done. And I think that's what you see with Hanukkah.
Yeah. I mean, and we see that with Mother's Day. And I mean, Mother's Day, and you think like, I mean, there are certain Sundays of the year where there's a lot of pressure on pastors, and for me, the big three are, number one, Easter is this most stressful sermon that you prepare, because typically, in a non-COVID year, you're going to have people that are like, oh, I got to go to church on Easter because that's just what you do. This past Easter, we don't know what happened because most of us were not meeting in person, or we were meeting online. But so that's the most stressful. The other one is around Christmas and trying to figure out, well, which is the Christmas sermon? Is it, this year, is it the 20th or is it the 27th? Do you do before Christmas or after Christmas? And, that's a stressful thing. And then the other one's Mother's Day. Nobody cares about Father's Day. We honor our high school graduates on Father's Day because that's how little we care about dads. But if you don't mention, mothers on Mother's Day, like, you could lose your job. I don't know if it was funny. Like my sermon series last year, we were talking about, I was doing an end times kind of sermon series about what's going to happen. And we talked about heaven and hell and the new heavens and the new earth. And it just so happened that the sermon that we were talking about on Mother's Day just happened to fall on the discussion of the existence and eternality of hell. And
that was great planning, James.
It was not, because when I announced it, I was like, hey, we're going to be talking about hell next week. And then I got an email. Are you sure you want to talk about hell on Mother's Day? So,
I made a plan and I'm sticking to it.
Well, I decided that it was good. I was going to talk about heaven. I was going to talk about hell first and then heaven second. So rather than talking about hell on Mother's Day, I swapped and we talked about heaven and then we ended with hell. And so that was, but you think about that, like, I haven't heard of a church today who is, we're not doing a Christmas series at all. We're just going to continue our study through the book of Colossians. I don't know that would go over very well for me. Because there's certain history, that you talk about, and people don't like you messing with their Christmas stories. They don't like you messing with their Easter stories. Last year,
Christmas songs.
Well,
I'll tell you what, I used to not understand why people would find it problematic when a hymn was changed or the tune was changed until we were attending North Hills 2 years ago. And Josh changed the tune to some classic Christmas hymn, Christmas Carol song, and I internally I was like, no. And from then on, I've understood why people would get upset when a tune is changed on a song.
I don't get a whole lot of feedback on. I don't get a whole lot of feedback on my sermons. I don't get a whole lot of feedback on the songs that we sing or anything that we do, except after that Sunday.
So I wasn't the only one.
Yeah, I remember. I think it was "Hark the Herald Angels Sing," and he did it in like a more modern type, like almost techno. And people were like, "Please don't change please don't change our songs." Yeah. And I get it, because that Sunday I was like, and Josh, I love Josh, and you know Josh, and he's a creative guy, and he likes to push boundaries, and he is like the Chris Tomlin of Christmas music, and likes to change things up a little bit. But it was not well received.
Yeah, it's when you make these attachments to the songs, and and you just but it's funny. So what, maybe we should, we've been rambling and rabbit trailing for 30 minutes. Let's talk about how we can, how can we celebrate Christmas? And maybe just throw ideas and discuss random ideas of what are things we can do that maybe take existing aspects that are culturally expected and culturally acceptable, and what are some other things we can do that are maybe outside the norm, or how do we, I have a Christmas tree in my front window. How do we redeem putting up a Christmas tree? I know there's tradition behind it, but most people don't know the tradition behind it. And so, which they actually talk about in that Buck Devers puppet thing, the history behind putting the Christmas tree in the house. So, what are some things we can do that we can help emphasize making Christmas actually about Jesus, and not about all these things? Like right now, Charlie, his favorite thing, what's your favorite thing about Christmas? And my answer is always celebrating Jesus's birth. And then he says, I like opening presents. And he's 7, so that's understandable. And then try to point him to and remind him, hey, why do we give presents on Christmas? So how do we do those types of things where we can intentionally focus our minds, our thoughts on Christmas, even when we're doing these things that are kind of more, they're not explicitly commanded in Scripture, and they're not, they're kind of, if you didn't know any better, you wouldn't make an initial Christmas connection to them, other than you do them at the same time of year. What do you have any thoughts?
You know, I think we as parents need to be very intentional about bringing the Christmas story into our celebrations.
Yeah.
And it's very hard. And don't get me wrong, it's so much easier for me to buy a bunch of Christmas presents, wrap them, put them under the tree, and watch with joy and glee as our kids tear into them on Christmas morning. That's so much easier than on December 1st, consistently having a time of family Advent worship every single night leading up to Christmas.
Yeah.
You know, and that's something we've tried to do the last couple of years, and we're hitting this. You know, I think in a 25-day month, we'll hit half of that.
Yeah.
Half of the nights we will sit down and intentionally have a time to spend reading God's word, reading the Christmas story, and we do it through Advent calendars that we get from Trader Joe's. And you know, if there's any you know business outside of you know Starbucks that really you know tries to remove Jesus from Christmas, it's probably Trader Joe's. So so the Advent calendars have nothing to do with Jesus at all.
No.
But we use them as a way to bring a little bit of fun to it. You know, they each have one. They open up their day. We read a Christmas story. Last year we did the Jesus Storybook Bible. You know, Sally Jones or whatever her name is.
Sally Lloyd Jones.
Yeah, Sally Lloyd Jones posted some, you know, some Advent type readings directly from the Jesus Storybook Bible on her website, and we used that. This year, Amanda found something different that we read, and this one's more biblically focused, where we read the Bible and the Christmas story in the Bible and talk about it. I think that's really helpful and intentional. And let's face it, I mean, we should be doing this throughout the year. I mean, family worship is something that all of us should make a priority. You know,
right?
That we are the primary spiritual role models and guides in the lives of our children. You know, as pastors, that's first and foremost should be what we model.
Right.
But all of us should be doing that year round. I mean, when we get to Easter, I mean, is it about an Easter bunny and Easter eggs? You know, I mean, that's even weirder than Santa Claus. I mean, if we really think about it, that's weirder than Santa Claus. Because at least
what are you
Santa
talking
Claus,
about, James? Why are you saying that's weird?
At least Santa Claus is bringing gifts, and we can tie that to the three wise men bringing, you know, gold, frankincense, and myrrh. But we have to intentionally bring the Christmas story in,
right?
And tell about who this baby was, or you know, better yet, in our you know our language, we say who this baby is. This baby is the incarnate Son of God who came to the earth to be the second Adam, that would grow up to live a perfect life, that would, even though he was without sin, die on the cross as our substitute, taking the penalty of God's wrath so that we could then have a renewed, restored relationship with God now, which carries on into eternity. I mean, that's the gospel. And we don't have to wait until Christmas to share that. But I mean, we're talking about a baby born in, you know, in a manger, and we celebrate that baby.
Right.
You know, and to me, it's funny that the baby this Christmas that seems to have taken over is not baby Jesus, but baby Yoda. Is there a way to talk about how, you know, to connect baby Yoda to, you know, to baby Jesus? I don't know if we want to go that far, but
this is the way.
This is the way. But yeah,
I have spoken.
Yeah.
So I don't know if I shared this with you. Did I show you the thing we got for Advent this year?
The blocks?
These blocks.
Yes.
We've been doing them. We've missed a couple days, but then we've ended up doing like we doubled up because the reading's not terrible, but it's really cool to kind of, it's showing the whole Christmas story. And so Amber, don't spoil things for people. And so I didn't think I would have to give a spoiler warning for Mandalorian. Anyhow, so we've got these blocks, and they have pictures on them for each that go with each day, and then they connect with an image to what the topic was that day, and then eventually at the end, when you finish them all, you turn them all and they say a phrase, and I can't remember what they all. So this is this one. I don't know if you guys can see my mouse. Is my mouse on over the picture? No, probably not. Okay, Chris. James, sorry. Sorry to spoil this for you, but Baby Yoda's name is Grogu.
I know. It's all over the internet,
okay.
And I can't actually see Amber's comments anymore for whatever reason.
Okay.
When my computer crashed and I got back on, I lost the ability to see what people are saying.
So the block on top on the left is a star, and the block on the right on the top is the earth. And so it's the star coming to the earth. So this representation of Jesus getting closer to the earth, and then God will be with his people. So I think it's a really cool way for us to make sure we're focusing on it. And it's got this kind of little repetitive phrase that you utter you say at the end of every reading. And it's like, sin drove God away. So he couldn't stay, or sin drove God away. He couldn't stay. So Abraham and Sarah began to hope and pray, God, will you come back to stay? And so just this reminder of what's really the Christmas story all about, and how are we, what are we putting before us? And I think it's a good point. Like, family worship is critical beyond just Advent. Yeah. It's critical all year long. And it's, you can put your kids in Sunday school every week. You can send your kids to youth group every week, but that's an hour. So maybe you get 2 hours at church of church stuff, or 3 hours if you do want to every week. And yet, if you do family devotional at home, like that, maybe it's 15 minutes, but that's stacked on top, showing the kids the value of it. And it reinforces that this is something that's not just a once a week thing, but an everyday thing. And I think Advent's a really good time to start that habit, and then keep it going far beyond it. But what are some other things? Like, how do we, I don't know about you guys, but like one thing we've tried to do is sometimes and this is something we do with my mom, is instead of opening gifts with my mom on Christmas, we'll open gifts on Epiphany, which is January 6th, which is the day that traditional churches celebrate the wise men coming. And so really trying to pull the gift aspect out of, we give a few gifts, but like, how are we pulling the gift aspect out and trying to make it so, hey, Christmas is not just about receiving toys, but it's receiving the greatest gift of all in the incarnate Son of God. But like, when we put up a Christmas tree, what do we talk to our kids about? Why are we putting up a Christmas tree? Are we doing it because, well, this is what you do at Christmas time, or is it, what's the meaning behind it? Or why do we have candy canes? The candy cane is supposed to look like a shepherd's hook, or a shepherd's crook. I can't remember. And the white is supposed to represent the purity of Christ, and the red is his blood. I think those are what the two colors represent. Or like the Christmas tree in that Buck Devers episode, they talked about the reason you put a Christmas tree is it points to heaven, reminds you of heaven. It is always green, so there's life always to be found in Christ, and the branches thread outward like the message of Christ. And so I think it's taking these little things and using them as signs or symbols to point us to the reality of what Christmas is. Why do we hang lights? I love the Jim Gaffigan bit where he talks about Christmas is the antics of a drunk man. Like, who gets the idea to go chop down a tree and bring it in the house? Like who thought this was a good idea? And so why are we doing these kind of strange, like, why are we putting all these lights on the outside of our house that really have no benefit other than they look pretty? And we can say, hey, look, Jesus is the light of the world, and what happens when the lights are on is we can see. What happens when the lights are off, we can't see.
Yeah.
And so, I don't know. Are there any other things? I mean, we can make sure we're celebrating by drinking Starbucks Christmas blend. Yeah.
Right. I mean, the manger's not on the cup, so it's not. Just kidding. I mean, I'm a pastor. I can't afford Starbucks coffee. But one thing I'll credit Amanda.
That's where we do our work half the time. Well, at least it used to be where we did our work. That's where I did my work.
Yeah, I mean, I'll credit Amanda with this. Is one of the things that she has emphasized with our kids is not always about getting gifts, but about giving gifts. So every year, since Mia was very young, we've always taken our kids and not for everybody and not for us, but we've emphasized like the importance of Mia getting gifts for like my mom, for Amanda's grandmother. We emphasize the importance of giving gifts to friends. Really kind of trying to embody that, what Paul said that Jesus said, even though we don't have any record outside of Paul that he said it, but 'tis better to give than to receive. So we want to emphasize that. So we've always kind of allocated a little bit of money every year to our kids buying other people presents. So just taking them to, whether or not it's, Target and that little, dollar section at the front of the store, or even after Christmas. A lot of times if we're going somewhere, we have our Christmas thing where it's pretty much just us. Cause I mean, you guys are up in Washington now, far away from any family. So you kind of understand, what we've been the last 10 years. We don't have any family within 3,000 miles of us. So our Christmas traditions can be very much just us. We don't have to go anywhere. We don't have it, and anytime like, when are you going to come home for Christmas? Like when we win the lottery, because tickets are too expensive around, and so we don't.
Five people fly?
Yeah.
Man, well, you probably don't have to pay for Skylar yet, but
yeah, we do. So
Man.
we're not doing that anymore. So
hey, you don't have anyone arguing about whose house you're going to go to.
Exactly.
So, sorry, I can't come to anyone's house.
Yeah, we've had the iPads on FaceTime every Christmas for the last 8 years now. So that's so we can do our own thing, and then we go to other people's houses like the day after Christmas, or at least we used to. You can't do that now because it's illegal. But so the day after Christmas, we go to Target, hit all the sales, and they buy like stupid ornaments for people and things like that, and then they wrap them themselves, and then they give those gifts as a way of us showing. And again, I can't take credit for this because this is Amanda's heart. I mean, one of her love languages is gift giving, so that's kind of her thing. She gives gifts, so she's teaching our kids to give gifts to other people. And that's been something that I think speaks volumes too. So they almost look forward to giving gifts as much as they do to getting them.
Well, I think it's good. It helps fight the consumerism,
Yeah.
It helps fight the like me mentality that even if it's not intentional, even if it's not actively promoted, the gift giving of Christmas can often foster in us.
Right.
Like you're like, oh, I'm going to get a bunch of gifts. And then, the next day I'm like, oh, I want this now. And I think for kids, that's even more difficult as they kind of don't know how to process through those wants and those desires. Like, okay, how do I keep them in check and all that? So.
Yeah, and something else we've started doing the last couple of years is we hit up church Christmas things, drive-through nativities, these things. And this past Saturday night, or was it Sunday night? Well, one was Saturday night, one was Sunday night. Like Saturday night, we went up to Trinity Baptist in Vacaville. Pastor Greg Davidson, as well as I do, and they had a live nativity, and people came and you sat in bleachers and you watched as they did this 40-minute program, and it was so gospel saturated and so incredibly filled with Jesus. And he shared the gospel at the end of it, and it was just a good reminder of Christmas. So then the Sunday night we went to a Christmas light display at another church here in our area, which I won't name the name. But it was a Christmas light display, and had some songs you tuned to a radio, and the only mention of Jesus in that was during the song, "Hark the Herald Angels Sing," and didn't actually name him at all. And it was funny, our kids' reaction to that. Like as we're driving away from the church that had a Christmas light display for the community, Mia and Emily both almost simultaneously said they didn't mention Jesus once. And as Amanda and I are thinking, like, now don't get me wrong, I loved what Greg did. But it was in your face, and I like that.
Yeah.
This was like we don't want to bring Jesus into this because we know that everybody in the world doesn't believe in Jesus. We just want this to be. And Amanda looks, she's like, there's got to be a middle ground between those two.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking, why there need to be a middle ground? Like, let's do what Pastor Greg did, because the world needs Jesus. They don't need more songs. And you think about, like, even our favorite Christmas songs that we sing that aren't mentioning Jesus, Frosty the Snowman, or Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer. They were written by a man named Burl Ives, who was a Jewish guy growing up in America, upset that he couldn't celebrate Christmas because he didn't believe in Jesus. So in On the Action, he wrote these songs, and they became cartoons. But there's no Christ in any of that.
Yeah.
And as our society tries to more and more take Christ out of Christmas, we have to be diligent to keep him in, at least in our own families.
Yeah, for sure. And I think that's critical as we, especially as we're in the culture is going to be increasingly looking to sideline Christianity and Jesus in all facets, and Christmas included, and I think it's important that as we interact with our kids and show them and teach them about Christmas, that we help them see the true meaning,
right?
And talk about the things that why would all of society celebrate this day?
Yeah.
Like what makes this day special? And we can point out, hey, well, here's why we originally celebrated it. And so what is it? Why what's the change? And we can help them understand that and wrestle through that. And I think, it's this reminder that, like, we get to think about how good God really is with Christmas. Like we are given the greatest gift of all in the Son of God.
Yeah.
And his condescension, like he became lowly for us. It's the antithesis of what the world offers.
Yeah.
The world does not offer get low. The world offers climb to the top and step on whoever you have to get there. And yet the God of the universe made himself nothing.
Yeah. I mean, what's less than a baby? I mean, and don't get me wrong. I mean, we love children. I mean, holding a newborn baby in your arms, but that baby can't do anything. And I don't think that Jesus was some special baby that could do things. I don't think from the very,
he wasn't Baby Yoda.
No, I mean, he couldn't do anything. Like he was like, and I feel like sometimes we're very hesitant to talk about this, but Jesus as a baby was helpless.
Yeah.
And I don't even want to get into those arguments about whether or not baby Jesus cried or not. Like, sure.
He was perfect, James. He didn't cry.
I mean, Yeah.
It's so we struggle with talking about the incarnation because it is so beyond our. I mean, it's a divine mystery. It's something that I don't know if when we get to heaven we'll even fully grasp it. But it's like, I mean, how, like, okay, what Jesus continued to be the sustainer of the universe in the midst of being a body in the universe and being a baby. Like, his nature didn't cease. He didn't stop being the Son of God. He didn't stop being, like, he didn't cease in his functions as the second member of the Trinity. It's not like the Father said, okay, you go and do that, and I'll just take over for what you normally do. And like, so how does that work? And so we wrestle with this language and when we're talking about it. How do you give full credit to it when really language is fully lacking? And that whole idea that he upholds the universe by the power of his word, and he, like, we know that God does not change, so Jesus did not change. He didn't cease to do those things.
Yeah.
How did that happen while he was an infant? While he was also mortal man? Like,
and I think we haven't even asked the most important question.
Do you play Christmas music before Thanksgiving?
Well, no, because, like, we haven't even asked the most important question at Christmas, like the one that has echoed through eternity, is, Mary, did you know?
Oh,
like, did Mary even know? Like, everything. And I mean, I know that, sometimes you're like, yeah, she knew because the angel Gabriel told her, but
well,
I mean, she couldn't possibly have comprehended the full nature of Emmanuel.
Right.
She couldn't possibly have, because, I mean, we have the Bible and we don't even fully comprehend.
Right. And even I preached from Luke 2:8-20 this past Sunday, and one of our deacons pointed something out to me in between services, and he's like, they're told that they're going to go see a child that was born in the city of David, who is a savior, a Christ, and the Lord, right?
Yeah.
They're told that, but just a verse before, they're told that, or two verses before, that the glory of the Lord shone around them. And then when they talk about, hey, we should go to Bethlehem, they say, and see this thing that the Lord has done. And so I got, like, what are the shepherds thinking when they say, hey, they need to go see the thing the Lord has done, and they need to go tell Mary and Joseph the thing that the Lord told them, and yet they're going to see the Lord. Like, I wonder if they even, like, caught it, like the people that were involved in these stories, that I think Mary had some like, she knew that Jesus was God, but like, did she fully grasp that? No. And just because you know something doesn't mean you know it. And and that song is entirely rhetorical. Like, it's not wrong to ask Mary, did you know? Like, I imagine that song coming from the perspective of Luke. Like, Luke is coming to Mary and say, Mary, this is who Jesus is. Mary, did you know that this is who this was?
Right. It's actually when you think about it, because it's a very good song for us to contemplate, because you think that the disciples spent 3 years with Jesus.
Yeah.
And they didn't know that he was going to raise from the dead. Yeah. Like, how many times did he tell them, hey, the Son of Man is going to be suffered, handed over to the Gentiles, he's going to be crucified, but on the third day he's going to raise again. And, like, it's almost like that day that he raises from the dead and like, he appears to them, they're like, whoa, we didn't know. Like, really? You didn't know?
Were you guys not paying attention?
Were you like? And I'm sure that Mary didn't completely understand everything, but she had faith, and that's the important thing.
Right.
You know, you look at Joseph's response. I like Joseph's response even better, because Joseph, like, he's contemplating whether or not he's going to divorce her because he thinks she's been unfaithful. Angel appears, said, "Fear not, don't be afraid to take Mary as your wife, for in her is conceived by the Holy Spirit.
Yeah.
You know, you shall call his name Jesus." Actually tells Joseph what Jesus means, for he will save his people from their sins. Oh, and by the way, you know, this is to fulfill the prophecy through Isaiah. You know, he will be called Emmanuel, which means God with us. And then we see that Joseph never speaks.
Yeah.
He doesn't say anything. He just acts. And Joseph went and did. And I think that's a very male response. You know, no questions. All right, got it. Let's just get to work. Is that sexist? I don't know.
Glad you said it, not me. All right, man. You got anything else? We've talked an hour now. These always go much quicker than it feels like. Sometimes I can talk for 15 minutes and it's like, man, I talked forever. And yet we talked for an hour and it feels like, oh, that was nothing.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's always good connecting with you. And so I enjoyed the last one we did where we talked about gathering together, and this one's been fun as well. But no, I've said everything. Cool. You know, there's actually if I sent it to Amber, I think last year, but there's an article about why it's in the Journal of the Evangelical Theological Society that talks about why
light reading.
Everyone wants some light reading on why Christmas was likely on December 25th from the very beginning, or at least possibly on. You have a link to that, James? I have to look. Okay, if you can find one, will you post it in the comments on the Facebook thing? Yeah. Later on. Yeah. Or if you have a PDF of it that we can share with anyone that is interested. I don't know what copyright distribution is on that. I think I was able to link it and send it to Amber. So I don't think there was any problem with that. I think, she was able to open it. Cool. I don't know if she ever read it. To be honest, like half of it is like very, very easy reading, and the other half is very technically digging deep into the nature of the cycle of the priestly service and all of that. Yes, please, because Amber lost it. Oh, that's cool. So. And there's some other. We have a bunch of people in our church that are theologically minded and like that type of stuff and would want to read it. So I think it would be a benefit to at least ponder and consider. Here's what it looks like. There you go. It's what's in it? The origin of Christmas and the date of Christ's birth. All right. So I'm sure people might find it interesting. There's and like we talked about, like part of what we talked about is it's good to think about these things and reflect upon them and focus on them. So sounds good. All right, my friend. Thanks for your time. It's good hanging out. Yeah. We should do this more often. And thank you for doing that thing that you did for me. Oh, you're welcome. I got you, man. I got you. Okay, cool. Well, if you want to go, I'm sure you're busy. Me? I'm a pastor. I only work on Sundays. Yeah, for 2 hours, right? 45 minutes, man. There you go. That's it. For our people, we got Christmas Eve service coming up. That's going to be at 5:30 on Christmas Eve. The plan is to be outside. See you, man. I'm hoping for us to have the FM transmitter so you don't have to get out of your car if you don't want to. I think it'd be better if you got out of your car, but if it's raining, we might not do that. I don't know. We'll see. It's going to be fun. It's going to be a good time. And I think that's it for announcements. Sunday, last service
last Sunday service before Christmas, we're going to have something exciting for members of the church, people who call Valley View home. So I hope you'll be here, or I hope you'll tune in. Tune in. That sounds so weird. I hate these terms I have to use in light of this COVID stuff, but I hope you either are here with us on Sunday or are watching and participating in that way. So, and then you'll get to hear about the fun surprise. So we will see you Sunday, and I think that's it. Anyone got anything before I go? Okay. If you need anything, let us know. If James sends me a PDF of it that I'm allowed to share, if he doesn't have a link, whatnot, if you are interested in reading that, let us know. You can comment or email me or text me or call me or tell me when you see me. So, yeah. All right, friends, I will see you Sunday.